So this is how much normal people make. This is how much software engineers at Google make. Oh, I'll wait for you to smash the like button. That was smash the like button worthy. What's up everybody, how's it going? In this video, we're going to be talking about something very exciting, which is how much do software engineers at Google and other big tech companies make? That's right, we're talking about compensation in tech. I'm going to structure this video into two sections. In the first one, I'm going to be talking about how compensation at Google and other big tech companies works, because it's actually not as simple as just being paid a salary. There are multiple components to compensation. And in the second section, I'm going to be sharing some real figures, including some of my figures, as well as some figures from resources online, and hopefully you'll find them very informative. I'm making this video because there's very little information about this topic out there, and the little information that is out there tends to be misinformation. This is a super important topic. If you're a software engineer right now, thinking of applying or in the process of applying to Google or any other big tech company, it's important that you know your value, what your market value is, what your worth is, what these companies might offer you. Similarly, if you're transitioning into software engineering or thinking about doing so, maybe you want to go to coding boot camp like I did, then it's very important that you know what you could expect to make at a company like Google, especially if you come from a lucrative career field like law or medicine. Is this going to be an upgrade or is this going to be a downgrade? Spoiler alert. It's probably going to be an upgrade. And if you're someone who's just curious, then I'm going to quench your curiosity. Enough rambling, let's dive into it. So compensation at Google and other big tech companies is typically made up of four components. No joke, I was actually actively trying not to mess up that four thing, and I still did. Maybe I should have imposter syndrome. Check out the video I made on imposter syndrome. I'll put it in the description below. The first component of the compensation is what's called the base salary. This is exactly what you think of when you talk about a normal salary. It's the fixed amount of cash that you're going to be making on an annual basis. Typically, it's paid out every 2 weeks, and it's just that. The second part of the compensation is going to be the bonus. This is something that's given out every year, once per year, typically. Some companies divide it up into smaller chunks, and it'll usually be a fixed percentage of your base salary that can be either increased or decreased based on your individual performance and sometimes the company's performance. As an example, at Google, the bonus was given out once per year, every year. It was typically 15% if you performed decently well, not poorly, not particularly well. But if you did perform well, so for instance, I performed pretty well there, you were able to increase it. I got my bonuses the 2 years that I was there in the ballpark of 22 and 24%. So it's a nice little way to kind of incentivize employees to perform well because they can increase their bonus. And to give an example, if let's say your base salary were $100,000, then a 15% bonus would be an extra $15,000 every year. The third part of the compensation is going to be what's called the equity award. This is where things get very interesting. Basically, these companies will give you stock in their company as a form of compensation. So for instance, at Google, you would receive shares of Google as part of your compensation. Now, the way that these equity awards work is typically they're given or they're granted for a 4-year time period when you join the company. So you will be given a 4-year equity grant award. For example, they'll tell you you get X amount of Google shares over 4 years. So if you leave after 2 years, you will give up roughly 2 years worth of the equity that we awarded you. So it's sort of incentivizing employees to stay and be in it for the long run. Now, a few other caveats about this is that most companies will have what's called a cliff, a 1-year cliff, meaning that during the first year that you work there, you get 0 equity. Only after the first year do you vest a percentage of the equity, and this again is sort of incentivizing employees to at least stay for 1 year. Now, at Google and most companies, after that 1 year, you vest 25% of the equity. So it's sort of a fourth of what you would get over 4 years, which kind of makes sense. Some companies are a bit more brutal there, and they'll give you a smaller percentage of your 4-year equity after that 1 year. I'm looking at you, Amazon. And actually now a lot of companies, including Google, have completely removed this whole 1-year cliff thing, and your equity starts vesting every quarter right when you join the company. So you'll vest an amount proportional to 3 months every 3 months. The last very important point to make about this equity award is that at companies like Google, that are very high performing and stable companies. Google's not going to die out suddenly tomorrow, or at least I hope not. We'd probably have bigger problems on our hands if it did. The stock is basically equivalent to cash. You're basically guaranteed that your stock will be worth something around what it was worth when you joined the company, if not more. A lot of these companies have been doing super well. For instance, when I joined Google, the Google stock price was at around $700 or $800 per share. Now it's hovering in between the mid 1100s and mid 1200s. So it's appreciated a lot, which means that if you held on to that equity, then it's grown a ton. And if you sold it, then you got cash. Finally, the fourth part of the compensation is what's called the sign-on bonus. This is exactly what it sounds like. It is a bonus that you get once when you sign your offer with the company and join the company. Now, this sign-on bonus is kind of tricky because it's not at all guaranteed. It's typically only reserved for candidates who are very competitive, so either candidates who have competing offers or maybe candidates who come from another company and the company giving the offer wants to sort of really incentivized to join them, and they can sort of range. They might be as low as, let's say, $10,000, and they might be as high as $70,000 or $100,000. It really depends on the candidate and on the company and the sort of circumstances around the offer. 2 more quick things before we dive into the real figures. I know some of you are dying to get into the real figures. Some of you might have even skipped ahead, in which case I guess you're not hearing me talk right now. But anyway, the compensation that I just mentioned, those 4 things, some of them might actually increase over time. For instance, if you get promoted, your base salary will increase, which means your bonus will be a percentage of a higher base salary. You might get what are called equity grants, equity refreshes, where the company will tell you, hey, we're going to give you another amount of equity over the next 4 years, starting at when they're giving it to you, typically once every year, and this will be based on your performance. If you're performing really well, hey, we'll give you a lot more equity over the next 4 years. If you're not performing super well, we'll only give you this little bit. And finally, there are a few other things that we could technically include in the overall compensation package at companies like Google. Things like the free food, which actually amounts to a lot if you use that perk a lot, or other benefits like 401k plans, which are really good at companies like Google, or gym subsidies, internet subsidies, commuting benefits. If you work at Google, they'll pay for almost everything in your life. You almost have no expenses, which is kind of crazy. But again, these are sort of not part of the official compensation package, so we're not going to really talk about them now. If you're interested, let me know in the comments below, and I can talk about it in the future video. Okay, so let's look at some real figures. There's this website called levels.fyi that's got a bunch of crowdsourced compensation packages from employees at all of these big tech companies right there at your disposal. Now, if you go on the website and you look at the homepage, you'll notice that you can see these compensation packages bucketed by all of these companies and by levels at these companies. So at Google, for instance, you've got L3, which is the sort of entry-level software engineering role. You've got L4, the sort of mid-level. That's what I was at when I left Google. There's L5, senior software engineer, L6, staff software engineer, and so on and so forth. And so if you click on one of these little things, the moment of truth, let's click on L3. Here you can see a sort of average of all of the submissions that they've gotten on their website. Now, by the way, you'll notice that there's an AlgoExpert ad here. You might actually not see it depending on when I post this video, because I think our advertising plan with them is going to end soon. But by the way, great plug here. If you're trying to get into Google, go check out AlgoExpert. Prepare for your coding interviews, ace them, and get this kind of compensation. AlgoExpert.io, use the promo code CLEM, C-L-E-M, for a discount. Okay, so you can see that the average total compensation for an L3 software engineer at Google is $182,000. There is a salary component, which is the base salary component. You can see it's roughly $120 per year as an average. Then there's the amount of stock per year. Again, if you were at Google here, you would have been given a 4-year grant. So it would be like 40,000 times 4, which is what? 160,000. I was going to say 120,000 at first, math major. And then you've got the bonus, which is going to be 20,000 here. And this is based off of that 15% figure that I gave earlier that can go up or down depending on your performance. And this is sort of averaged out over all of the people who submitted their salaries here. One very important thing to note is that these numbers are going to vary a lot depending on your location. So unfortunately, these numbers are very accurate if you live either in the Bay Area or in New York City, which is where I live, or if you live in maybe Seattle. Seattle, they're probably going to be a little bit lower, but close to that. But then if you live in lower cost of living places, these are very high cost of living areas where market rates are just much higher than the average. But then if you live in other parts of the world, either in the United States or abroad, then these numbers are likely going to go down or at least be a little bit different. So here, I would encourage you to look deeper into this website. You can filter stuff out by location and you can kind of get a better sense of what you might make at your location. As far as what my compensation was when I joined Google as an L3 software engineer about 2.5 years ago, I was given a base salary of $115,000. I was given a 4-year stock award of $135,000, or it was stock that was worth at the time $135,000 over 4 years, which meant roughly $34,000 per year. And then I had, of course, that target 15% bonus, but like I said before, I performed pretty well, so I got a bonus more in the low 20% range, 22, 24%. So when my recruiter gave me the offer at the stock price at that time, and given that 15% target bonus, he told me that my total sort of compensation per year would be roughly $169,000. It's actually kind of funny, because on the one hand, if you compare my offer to these figures, you'll realize that my offer was kind of below average. I was sort of on the lower range of L3 compensation. On the other hand, to think that someone like me who had just learned to code 6 months before, had no internship experience, no work experience, no nothing under my name, could get a total compensation of $169,000 just like that. I don't know, I think it's kind of crazy and kind of amazing how high these tech salaries or compensation packages are. Anyway, since then, my compensation at Google increased a lot because I was promoted and because I got a couple of annual raises and equity refreshes that were boosted because of my performance. We can take a look at a couple of other figures here on the website, like for instance, L4, the average total compensation at Google for L4 software engineers is $255,000. Then you can look at L5, senior software engineer, $350,000, L6, $470,000. And as you'll notice, the main thing that increases as you go up in these levels is your stock award. Your base salary will increase, but it sort of increases on a very plateauing curve, whereas the stock award is sort of what goes up drastically. Because at the end of the day, these companies want you to have a very vested interest in their success. They want you to perform very well, and so that's why they really heavily skew their compensation in the stock. The higher you get and the more your impact is expected to have impact on the company's success. I'm going to let you peruse the rest of this website at your leisure if you want to maybe look at other companies or other levels, but otherwise, that's going to be it for this video. I really hope that you found the information in this video very informative and very useful, and I hope that you appreciated my transparency and my candor. If you did, don't forget the like button, it has to be smashed, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Turn on the notification bell. I'm posting 3 times per week. You don't want to miss out on that content, and I will see you in the next video.